In this life process, we must improve over time, never stop striving, and strive diligently and honestly. Wendy, today, was enthusiastic and honest. The results were remarkable, garnering the support of all the members of the label company she leads, and Charlie appreciated her efforts. Wendy's thinking and understanding of life improved dramatically. Charlie also remembered his promise to his friends. Life is hard but beautiful, and melancholy can soften the heart. Dear viewers, please continue to follow this increasingly interesting story. Thank you.
Chapter 2311. With the support of all the etiquette ladies, Wendy successfully took the first step to take over the Shengmei Etiquette Company. She had been busy at the company until very late before she managed to catch the last bus, dragged her exhausted body, and returned home. Since Wendy went out to work, the Wilson family barely need to go hungry. They have some rice at home. They dare not say that they can let the old lady Wilson and Harold eat vegetables and meat, at least they are hungry. Being able to steam a pot of white rice satisfies hunger. When Wendy returned home, Mrs. Wilson had just finished serving the two to eat some white rice. She made half a bowl of rice with boiling water, sprinkled some salt into it, and ate it alone. Seeing Wendy's return, she couldn't help complaining a little. "Wendy, why did you come back so late today? I was at home to serve your father and your brother, and you were so tired that you would not come home early and help me." Quote, Wendy said a little apologetically, "I'm sorry, Grandma, the company has a lot of business, so it took a little longer." The old lady Wilson said dissatisfied, "Isn't it just being a lady of etiquette? When it's over, you come back with the money, how can it be so late?" Harold, lying on the bed, couldn't help but say, "Yes, Wendy, I especially want to eat a bowl of preserved egg and lean meat porridge today. I also said that when you make money earlier, I will buy half a caddy of pork as well. As for the preserved eggs, I have been waiting until now." Brother, who was lying next to Harold, sighed, and said, "Wendy, Dad has always had cramps these past 2 days, and it hurts as soon as he pumps up, and he has not gotten better for a while. The calcium deficiency is severe. Can you think of a way to buy a box of calcium tablets for Dad?" Seeing the pitiful appearance of her father and brother, Wendy felt very distressed. She wanted to tell them all of her experience today and let them know that Charlie gave her a good opportunity to manage a company and pays her a monthly salary of $10,000. However, when she thought of Charlie's condition, she resisted the impulse, suppressed the matter, and said, "Dad, brother, you two will stick to it, the company will adjust for me. Let me be a manager. I can earn $10,000 a month in salary. I will ask the finance company tomorrow to advance half a month's salary. Then I will definitely improve our family's living conditions." Brother asked in surprise, "Wendy, what you said is true? Are you really a manager in the company?" Harold also hurriedly asked, "Wendy, is it really $10,000 a month?" Wendy nodded and said seriously, "It's really $10,000 a month." With that said, she took out the latest Apple mobile phone that Charlie bought for her, and said gratefully, "The boss sees that I don't have a mobile phone and it's affecting my work, so he gave me one especially." "Oh, God." Harold became excited, and blurted out, "Sister, you are going to get up to speed. More than 10,000 mobile phones, your boss will give it away, he is too generous." The old lady Wilson, who was on the side, also burst into tears with excitement. She choked up and said, "If Wendy can really get 10,000 a month, that day will be more than 300. With so much money, our family's life will be too much better." With that said, Mrs. Wilson calculated, "The current pork is only 20 a caddy, ordinary rice is about 3 a caddy, our family of 4, 1 caddy of pork, 2 caddies of rice a day, buy some more vegetables and other things, at most 70 or 80 for food, buy a few bottles of milk every day to supplement calcium, 100 is enough. Jacob and Harold can also take a little medicine to speed up recovery, one day even if you spend another $100. There will still be 100 balances." Harold burst into tears, "Grandma, I can finally eat some meat every day." "Yes." Mrs. Wilson sighed, and then said, "When you and your dad recover, you will both find a job. I dare not expect to make a lot of money, but you two, one earning 5 or 6,000 a month is always more than enough. When the time comes, our family will have an income of 15,006 in a month. On that day, everything will be more than enough." Wendy felt melancholy when she heard this. She thought to herself, the former Wilson family didn't dare to say that they were wealthy, but at least they had tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of assets. At that time, the family had to eat tens of thousands of dollars or more for a month. But everyone was not satisfied at that time. They always felt that life was not good enough. They tried everything possible to climb the dragon and the phoenix, ask for more. Now, after experiencing so many things, the family's requirements for life have also fallen steeply. It was not enough to eat well before, but now, as long as you can eat one good meal a day and save little savings every day, in the eyes of the family, it is already a good day to dream. Although it feels sad to think of it, it's really ironic. When thinking of this, Charlie appeared in Wendy's mind, and she thought, it's still Charlie who is the most practical. Even in the poorest days, he could live on the ground. When he becomes the upper class in Oris Hill, the admiring Master Charlie, he can live with Claire without forgetting his original aspirations steadfastly. At this point, she took out her phone and quietly added Charlie's WeChat. Charlie had just eaten at this time, and Chin Gang's call was displayed on the mobile interface. After connecting, he respectfully said, Master Charlie, Aushway told me, you asked me to have a dinner at home to entertain everyone. I don't know when will it be convenient for you. Charlie said, it's already Thursday today, so we'll tentatively schedule Friday night. What do you think? Chin Gang said respectfully, there is no problem with that time. Everything depends on Master Charlie's convenience. Charlie snorted and said, then set it to Friday night. You can invite everyone. Chin Gang hurriedly said, Master Charlie, I will tell you the number of people, and see if you are satisfied with it. It is good. Chin Gang then started to name the people he thought Charlie would like to have on the dinner table. Charlie said, remember to invite Doris, the vice chairman of Emgrand Group. Chin Gang said immediately, okay Master Charlie, I will call Vice Doris a few moments later. Charlie said, then I'd trouble you to arrange it for me. Chin Gang immediately reverently said, Master Charlie, there is no need for formality between you and me. If you have anything, please don't hesitate. Charlie snorted and said with a smile, I will come by a few hours in advance, give Aushway some guidance, and give you a small gift by the way. Chin Gang's excited voice trembled when he heard this. He realized that Charlie might be sending him a spring pill. With uncontrollable excitement, he blurted out, Master Charlie. Thank you so much. Charlie smiled slightly, you are polite, see you tomorrow. Okay Master Charlie, see you tomorrow. Charlie hung up Chin Gang's voice call and suddenly saw a new friend in the WeChat address book. He clicked on it and found that it was Wendy who had sent a friend request, so he clicked to pass the verification. Immediately afterward, Wendy sent a sentence, Brother-in-law, I have settled the accounts on the company side. There are almost 300 courtesy ladies who are willing to cooperate with the company and will report to you especially. Charlie was also a little surprised by the number of people, thinking that Wendy should have done a good job, so he replied, very good, keep up the work. Wendy hurriedly said, okay brother-in-law, I will definitely go all out. Immediately afterward, another sentence was sent, brother-in-law, I have something to request to you. Charlie asked, just tell me. Wendy said, brother-in-law, there are more places to spend money at home. I need half a month's salary in advance, can I? Charlie knew that she must have some difficulties, so he readily agreed and replied, no problem, just say hello to the finance. Wendy immediately sent a grateful expression, saying, thank you, brother-in-law. Charlie didn't have many thoughts about Wendy. Originally, he was just looking at her sincerely regretful attitude, wanted to help her a little, give her some money, and let her deal with her situation. But after discovering that she was being bullied, and also discovering that Benjamin and Mia were bullying too much, Charlie had more or fewer thoughts of eliminating harm for the people. Therefore, he smoothly handed Benjamin's Shangmei Etiquette Company to Wendy to operate. However, Charlie was still a little wary and careful about Wendy in his heart, so he gave Wendy a rule that although she had to manage the entire company, she could only get a monthly salary of 10,000. The reason for this is to limit her income and rights and let her do things peacefully, instead of disappearing all of a sudden with the whole money. Wendy didn't think so much. Charlie was able to help her to the present level. She was very satisfied deep in her heart. All she thought about right now was to work hard and do a good job in Shangmei etiquette. Adhering to the idea that more is worse than less, Charlie did not tell his wife Claire this matter. Moreover, Claire was indeed too busy recently. After eating, she ran to the study to continue working without daring to delay at all. Claire has now begun to prepare for the renovation and bidding of the 6-star hotel of the Emgrand Group. She is in a period of rising career, and she is also surprisingly ambitious. In her words, she now especially hopes to share some burden and give support to Charlie. Seeing that his wife was off work, and had to work overtime, he felt a little distressed. So he washed some fruits and brought them upstairs to the study. In the study, Claire was immersed in the computer at the desk drawing a design. Seeing her attentive, Charlie was afraid that his sudden appearance would scare her, so he coughed lightly and attracted Claire's attention. Ahem, Claire. Claire heard the voice, looked back at Charlie, and smiled. Husband, why are you here? Charlie walked to the front, put the fruit on the desk, and said, I washed some fruit for you, you need to eat more. You work in front of the computer for so long every day, there will be more radiation. Eat more fruit to supplement vitamins. This can reduce radiation hazards. Claire smiled sweetly and said, Thank you, husband. After finishing speaking, she picked up the largest and reddest strawberry from the fruit bowl. She didn't eat it, but she stuffed it directly into Charlie's mouth, and said with a smile, Husband, eat this. Charlie smiled and said, I have eaten already, you can eat it yourself, don't worry about me. Claire pretended to be angry and pouted, If you don't eat, then I won't eat either. After speaking, she murmured angrily, You don't even eat when someone brings it to your mouth. This is too sad. Upon hearing this, Charlie hurriedly opened his mouth and swallowed both the strawberry and Claire's 2 fingers into his mouth. Not only that but also deliberately used a little force to bite her fingers. Oh! Claire exclaimed, and then realized that Charlie had attacked her. She hurriedly pretended to be frightened and said, Ah! I kindly fed the puppy, but I got bitten by the puppy. Quote, Charlie opened his mouth while eating strawberries. He said vaguely, Okay, if your husband is a puppy, then what are you? Claire snorted proudly and said, I am feeding the puppy, and of course I am the owner of the puppy. Charlie smiled and said, If I were a puppy, then you would be the bone in my mouth. Claire smiled and said, How can you compare people to bones like this? Charlie said earnestly, Don't you know that the puppy is the most protective of the food? A bone is in the mouth, and the sky will not loosen when the sky falls. If anyone dares to snatch it, it must fight hard. Seeing Charlie's seriousness, Claire was very moved, and couldn't help but said shyly, If this is the case, then I will reluctantly be a bone, let you hold on to it. Charlie laughed and said, Don't just talk, eat some fruit first. Claire nodded, picked up 2 more strawberries, first stuffed one into Charlie's mouth, and then she put the second one in his mouth, and took a bite. Charlie looked at her computer screen and found that a very large prototype of the design had been constructed in the design software. He couldn't help but ask her, My wife, you have to do the design of such a big project by yourself. Quote, Claire said, Not really. What I am doing now is a sketch, because there is no need to make a very detailed design plan when bidding. The main purpose is to reflect a general idea. When we wait for the bid, we need to give this design plan and a more detailed decoration budget quotation from the past, but my studio now has relatively few staff. For such a large project, everyone has to move on, so I am responsible for drawing, others focus on integrating suppliers of various materials and actuarial project costs. This amount of engineering is really huge. At least hundreds of suppliers have to be connected to thousands of single products. Charlie nodded and said distressedly, Don't be too tired. Pay attention to the combination of work and rest. Claire smiled and said, Don't worry, just these few days. After finishing these few days, package and submit the entire bidding documents, and then wait for the internal review of Emgrand Group. If it passes, I will quickly expand the recruiting team. After that, Claire said seriously, If my project is completed, then you won't have to work so hard in the future and make money alone to support the family. Our family's overall expenses are very high now, and the villa property costs are more than 100,000 a year, let alone other things. Most of the profits made by my studio before have been invested in expansion, and I have never been able to subsidize the family and cannot share it for you, so this time I have to strive to win this project and make some contributions to the family. Charlie knows Claire's character very well. She never cared about money, and she didn't have any requirements for food, clothing, housing, and transportation. The reason why she wants to start a business and make money now is ultimately for her family. So he said softly from the bottom of his heart, "My wife, thank you." Claire said seriously, "I want to thank you. For so long, you have been supporting us at home. My parents and I are depending on you." Charlie hurriedly said, "What are you talking about? It is only right for your husband to make money to support the family. For the first 3 years of marriage, I didn't make a penny, so I did laundry and cook at home. You never disliked me. I now bear more. That's nothing." Claire smiled and said sincerely, "The most important thing is that we can always understand and tolerate each other like this. It is more meaningful than making money. Just like before, although you didn't make a penny, you always did housework. You're well organized and take care of me in all aspects. This is more important than making money." What Charlie is most grateful to Claire for is that she has never disliked his apparent origin during these years of marriage. After all, a person whose parents died at the age of 8, grew up in an orphanage, only has a high school diploma recognized by the state, and had nothing, almost penniless. Put it anywhere, it is definitely not a quality marriage from any angle. However, she, the number one beauty in Oris Hill, married him without complaint, and they are married for 4 years. In the past 4 years, countless people have persuaded her to divorce him, and she has not wavered even once. From this alone, Charlie was very grateful to her in his heart. During the recent period, Charlie also wanted to find an opportunity to confess his life experience to Claire, but he was a little hesitant when he thought of the fact that his parents hadn't reported their grievances or even the cause of their parents' death could not be ascertained. Now, all he can find out is an anti-Wade alliance. When his parents were still in Eastcliff, the anti-Wade alliance did a lot of things against them, but in his childhood memory, his parents decided to leave the Wade family not because of the anti-Wade alliance but because of his father Chenggying Wade. He had a big quarrel with his grandfather Zongquan Wade about something. After that quarrel, the parents decided to leave the Wade family and the family of 3 had to come to Oris Hill to live an ordinary life. But soon after coming to Oris Hill, his parents died unexpectedly. However, Charlie has always firmly believed that the death of his parents was by no means an accident and that there must be a murder or motive behind this. It's just that he now has no clue as to who killed his parents. First of all, he didn't know whether the Wade family was an enemy or a friend. Secondly, he didn't know what role the Sioux family played in this matter. Once again, he remembered that Leon said that his father had offended the Rothschild family that dominated Europe and the United States at the time, so he is not sure whether the Rothschild killed his parents. There are wolves in the front, tigers in the back, and a fierce behemoth on the other side of the ocean. Although Charlie has some strength now, he still feels like walking on thin ice. The Wade family, what is known, what is hidden, what is tucked away, all assets add up to at least trillions. The Sioux family not only has more assets than the Wade family, but the overall strength is stronger than that of the Wade family. Although it has suffered a serious setback recently, it still cannot be underestimated. Trillions sound like a fantasy, but in fact, looking at the world, trillions of family assets are nothing at all. On the global ranking of the richest people, the number 1 is Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, whose personal assets are equivalent to more than 1 trillion. Moreover, this is only to be seen. No rich man will publish all his assets. What is published is often just the tip of the iceberg. As for the giant-like Rothschild family, it can already be called a wealthy country in itself. There have been countless rumors about the Rothschild family in Europe and North America for a century. Some people say that they dominate half of Europe, some say that more than half of Europe, and even half of the United States is under their control. They are almost everywhere in Europe and the United States. The most profitable bank is theirs, the most profitable oil refinery is also theirs, the largest shipping group is still theirs, and even the largest military industrial enterprise is theirs. The railway transportation that promoted the Industrial Revolution in Europe and the United States was also under the control of this family. As for precious minerals such as gold and diamonds, are their traditional strengths. A rough estimate is that the entire family's assets are at least several trillion dollars. In other words, a Rothschild has more than 10 times the assets of the Wade family. What's more frightening is that Rothschild, as an old Jewish family, has a great influence in European and American politics. The big men on Wall Street are almost all Jews. Almost all the lifeblood of America is in their hands. Such a family can even promote a war between nations behind the scenes. In front of these families, Charlie's current assets and strengths are not worth mentioning. If at this time, his identity is leaked, it's hard to know what kind of storm it will cause. Under such circumstances, Charlie really did not dare to confide in Claire. He felt that at least she had to wait for him to figure out the cause of his parents' death, figure out whether the Wade family was an enemy or a friend, figure out whether they had a deep hatred with the Rothschild family. Claire didn't know what the husband next to her was thinking about at this time. While eating fruit, she said with a look of longing, "Husband, if I can win this project, you won't have so much pressure in the future." Charlie said seriously, "I don't have any pressure. It's very easy to make money, so you don't need to have any pressure. If this project is too tiring, then don't participate in the bidding. It is so tiring to prepare for bidding. If you really win this project, I'm afraid it will be even more tiring." Claire smiled and said, "If it's tiring, so be it. You can't refuse to develop because you are afraid of being tired. If the company can become bigger and stronger, I can divide a lot of work in the future and concentrate on management. In fact, it's not too tiring either. The most tiring is the studio model. As the boss and the employee, I have to do everything myself." Charlie nodded in agreement. This is indeed the case. The most feared thing is that the two identities get mixed together. Claire smiled slightly and said, "Okay, you don't have to feel sorry for me. I will continue to work here. You can go back to the bedroom and rest first." Charlie said, "Then, wife, get busy, I won't bother you, remember to call me if you need something." At the same time, the excited Chin gang was calling the people Charlie wanted to invite one by one. Most of these people are his old acquaintances and old friends, so they are very easy to contact. They call each other and tell everyone about the matter. Everyone is excited. Charlie had only given medicine on a large scale once. At that time, everyone received his favor and got a magic medicine. This time, Charlie wanted to give the medicine again, and they were naturally full of joy. Tailai Li, who was in Haijiu, heard that Charlie was going to treat him, and even immediately asked Zhao Hao, his friend at the Charlie Welfare Institute, to drive him to Oris Hill overnight. Tailai also owns a lot of real estate in Oris Hill, so he plans to stay in Oris Hill overnight, so as not to delay his schedule tomorrow in case of an emergency. The main reason why he values it so much is because this opportunity is too rare in his eyes. The only person who has not received Chin Gang's notification is Doris of the Emgrand Group. It was not that Chin Gang had forgotten her, mainly because Chin Gang did not have Doris's contact information. Before Charlie took over the Emgrand Group, Doris had always been the vice chairman of the Emgrand Group. She is not the eldest lady of a big family, nor is she a rich and powerful second generation. She is completely a very capable career woman who can climb up on her own. Therefore, she basically doesn't mix with the so-called high society like Oris Hill. Like Isaac, Solomon, Chin Gang, and Warnia, although she knew each other, she had never been familiar with them. And people like Isaac and Solomon had already formed a small circle around Charlie by their side. People in this small circle all have a very good relationship with Charlie, and they know Charlie's abilities, so they regard Charlie as a standard and treat him respectfully. So Chin Gang called Charlie and respectfully said, "Master Charlie, I have already notified everyone. Time is okay, but only Doris, this person has been very low-key, and I have never had her contact information. Do you think it is not convenient for you to give me her phone number?" Charlie said, "Forget it, let me call her directly." After hanging up Chin Gang's phone, Charlie called Doris. As soon as the phone was connected, Doris asked respectfully on the other end, "Chairman, what do you want?" Charlie couldn't help but frown slightly. Normally, Doris would call him young master in private. Now it's off work time, why did she call him chairman? Is it not convenient for her to speak now? Thinking of this, Charlie also said very politely, "Deputy Doris, I want to ask if you have time tomorrow night." I have dinner and I want to invite you to come over. Doris hesitated for a moment, and said a little apologetically, Chairman, I'm really sorry, I can't confirm the time yet, can I reply to you tomorrow? Charlie was puzzled, and asked, Deputy, have you encountered anything? Doris said unnaturally, there is nothing like that, Chairman, but I have some guests to entertain, so. Charlie smiled slightly and said, okay, let's call again tomorrow. It doesn't matter if it is inconvenient for you, we can make another appointment at another time. At this moment, the inpatient department of Oris Hill People's Hospital. As the best general hospital in Oris Hill and even the whole province, it is overcrowded at any time. No matter which department, the beds are not available. Not only is there a lot of people living here, but many patients also line up at home waiting for hospital beds for treatment. In the intensive care unit of the Department of Nephrology, there is a man lying unconscious and full of tubes on the bed. He is about 50 years old. On the side of the hospital bed, there was also a middle-aged woman of the same age. The outside of the intensive care room is a small living room and family rest area. After all, it is the intensive care room with the best conditions. The internal layout is very similar to a hotel suite. At this moment, 2 young men, 1 man, and 1 woman were standing in the meeting room. The woman is Doris, the vice chairman of the Emgrand Group, and across from her is a blonde white man with a hooked nose. As soon as Doris hung up Charlie's phone, the man with a hooked nose spoke to Doris with a not-so-standard Mandarin and said to her with a smile, Doris, I think my uncle's condition will not be delayed for too long, the law also expressly prohibits the sale of organs. Now no one but I can find a suitable match for uncle. Doris looked at him and pleaded bitterly, Walter, I beg you to help me set up a line for the sake of classmates. How much money is needed for the kidney source you contact in the United States? As your referral fee, okay. The man called Walter sneered, Doris, you don't think that I have worked so hard to make you a difference, right? As he said very seriously, Doris, in fact, I liked you very much when I was a classmate, but at that time, I was not financially independent and did not take over family affairs. My family did not allow me to find a foreign woman. I dare not pursue you under their noses. Speaking of this, he laughed and said triumphantly, ha ha ha, but now I am married and I have just been sent to China to take charge of China's business, they can no longer control me. Furthermore, the family is determined to enter the new market this time. I may stay in China for at least 10 years. Doris frowned and asked him, Walter, what are you trying to say? Walter covered his chest, pretending to be heartbroken, and said, Doris, if I can't get you in the next 10 years, I should be very lonely. Doris said coldly, Walter, for the sake of our past relationship as classmates, I beg you to show respect. Walter smiled frivolously and said, sorry, I just like to go straight. Doris, as long as you are willing to leave the Emgrand Group, join my company, and be my vice chairman and lover, then I will immediately let someone use my private jet to send you the kidney source. You promised me today, uncle can get a new kidney tomorrow, what do you think? You are shameless. Doris gritted her teeth and said angrily, Walter, what is the difference between you and a selfish animal? And you are already married and have children. Is your this act worthy of your wife and children? Walter curled his lips and said nonchalantly, for people like me, marriage is only to fulfill the mission of the family. I will marry whoever the family asks me to marry. As long as I marry the woman they want me to marry, they won't interfere in my private life. After that, he smiled indifferently, as for children, it doesn't matter. They are still young. When they grow up, I will make them realize that money is more important than anything. Then, they can understand who I am now. As soon as he finished speaking, Walter remembered something and hurriedly said, oh yes, if you become my lover, you may also get pregnant. After all, I don't like any contraceptive measures. Besides, I always thought of a child of mixed blood, it's a pity that the family tradition has always demanded a pure bloodline, which is really troublesome. At this point, Walter laughed and said triumphantly, but, if they are illegitimate children and don't involve inheriting the family property, they will just open one eye and close the other eye and won't pursue too much. Doris roared angrily, Walter, I really didn't expect you to be such a shameless beast. Walter laughed and said, come on Doris, everyone is grown up, shame is a shit. Look at those people who are full of benevolence and morality every day, who is not a full-bellied male thief and PR0 stone. Toots. If you follow me, come to work in my company, and use the real estate experience you have accumulated in the Emgrand Group and the confidential information in the Emgrand Group to help me expand the Chinese market, then I will give you twice the amount of the Emgrand Group salary package with an extra 5 million in bonus every year. In this way, your annual income is 10 to 20 million. If you can help me secretly hollow out the Emgrand Group's industry and let me annex the Emgrand Group at a price of less than 50 billion, then I will give you 100 million at that time. There is even better. When the time comes, our two offices will only be separated by a wall, and then we can quietly open up the two rooms, make a secret door, and make a set of cabinets outside the secret door. In this way, I can sneak into your office at any time during working hours and spend time with you. What a perfect thing. Aren't you moved? Doris stepped back, walked around Walter. Walked to the door of the room, and opened the door, angrily said, "Walter, I don't want to see you, please get out of here." Walter sneered. "Doris, you let me roll, I can roll anytime, but your father, it seems that he can't hold on for too long, so I advise you to consider my conditions." Doris gritted her teeth and said, "I won't think about it. Don't daydream here. Get out, or I will call the police now." Walter spread his hands, curled his lips, and said, Okay, don't be so excited. Although your father's condition is very serious, you should still have 1 month to think about it. I have been to Oris Hill recently. If you figure it out, you can contact me at any time." After finishing talking, he tidied the collar of his suit, blinked provocatively at Doris, and smiled. "My dear, then I'll leave." Doris watched him leaving, her whole body shivering in anger. Tears burst into her eyes instantly. Chapter 2321. 2 years ago, Doris's father had severe nephritis. Because he had Rh-negative blood, it has been difficult to find a suitable kidney source. At that time, Doris did the matching by herself but failed to match it. Later, it was also lucky. The relatives in her family found a successful match in Southeast Asia, and the other party was also willing to donate for a fee. Later, Doris spent 1 million to solve the kidney problem for her father. She thought that after finding the source of the kidneys, as long as she took good care of him, he could extend his father's life cycle for at least 20 to 30 years. But she never dreamed that after only 2 years, severe rejection occurred in the kidney of her father's transplantation, and the kidney function dropped sharply. He was fine before the new year, and after the new year, they were admitted to the hospital because of acute kidney failure. Doctors can't find out the cause of kidney failure, and this kind of failure is completely irreversible. The only way is to find a new source of kidney and perform another transplant as soon as possible. In a hurry, Doris raised the price to 5 million, but even if the money was high, she still couldn't find a suitable kidney source in a short time. Walter, a classmate of Doris when she was studying abroad, found about this from nowhere, and then he was very enthusiastic to help her contact the kidney source from the American black market. Walter came over today to tell Doris that the source of the kidney had been found, and that was a donor, a very young and strong guy. But before Doris was happy about this news, Walter immediately revealed himself and made a series of extremely excessive demands. Thinking of this, Doris was extremely depressed. She also knew that it was almost impossible to find a suitable kidney source in such a short period of time. At this moment, she couldn't help but think of the scene when she attended Warnia's birthday party. Charlie took out a rejuvenating pill at the time and was bought by Tailai at a sky-high price of 2 billion. It is said that that pill not only cures all diseases but also turns decay into a miracle life. It's a pity that the price of 2 billion is definitely not something that Doris can get. Although her income is not low, she has always been a senior worker after all, and all her net worth is less than 100 million. How can she expect to be able to afford a 2 billion pill? At this time, the inner door was gently pushed open. The middle-aged woman came out and asked her, "Doris, has Walter gone?" This woman is Doris's mother, Lethina's son. Doris hurriedly wiped away her tears, turned to look at the woman, nodded, and said, "Yes, Mom, he's gone." After speaking, she hurriedly asked, "Mom, how is Dad?" Lethina sighed. "It's still like that, he's not awake." As she said, she saw Doris just crying, so she hurried forward and asked concerned, "Doris, why are you crying?" What did Walter tell you? Didn't he say that he has helped your father find the kidney source? What's next? Doris sighed and said in a low voice, the source of the kidney has been found, but what he meant was that I should work for him, and at the same time be his lover. What? Lethina suddenly widened her eyes and blurted out, isn't this person your old classmate? How could he be so shameless? Doris said helplessly, I didn't expect that he would become like this a few years after graduation. Lethina hurriedly said, can we give him more money? If the kidney source is 2 million, we will give him 4 million, or 6 million, as long as he can help find the kidney source and ensure that your dad can get it in time. Even if we smash the pot and sell iron, we are still willing. Doris shook her head and said seriously, this Walter's father is a relatively well-known real estate tycoon in the United States. His family strength is very strong, and his assets are worth tens of billions of dollars. How can he be worthy of our money? Lethina cried all of a sudden, and said helplessly, what should we do? Your father's Rh-negative blood, originally only one in hundreds of thousands of panda blood, wanted to follow him. It is very rare for people of the same blood type. It is even more difficult to find someone with the same blood type as him, with a successful organ match, and the other party is willing to donate. That's another condition. As she said, she sighed and cried, the doctor said that your father's current condition can last up to 3 months. If we can't find the source of the kidney, then they can't save him. Doris nodded with a pained expression, and said, Mom, don't cry, give me some time to find the source. Lethina couldn't hide her anxiety and sobbed. The doctor said, your father's physical condition can wait up to 20 days. If the kidney source cannot be resolved in 20 days, even if you find the kidney source, his physical condition won't allow him to receive surgery. Doris nodded and said seriously, Mom, don't worry, I will try my best to figure out a solution. Lethina nodded slightly, her whole body was crying. Doris whispered at this moment, Mom, stay here for a while, and I will go out to breathe some fresh air. Okay, you can go. Doris came out of the ward and went directly to the courtyard below the inpatient department of the hospital. It was already night and the weather was relatively cold, and there were few people in the yard. She took out a pack of ladies' cigarettes from her pocket, took one out and put it in her mouth, and then took out a lighter, and pressed it a few times anxiously. Then the flame was shot out and the smoke was lit. Against the flames, her face was very ugly. The cigarette was ignited, and Doris's lips lightly bit the cigarette butt and took a hard sip. The surroundings were quiet, and even the peculiar sound of tobacco being lit could be heard clearly. Doris rarely smokes and doesn't like to smoke, but because she has been very hard at work, she is often overtired and over-upset. At this time, smoking a cigarette can bring her some relief. Smoke erupted from her delicate nose. Feeling the stimulation of nicotine in her brain, Doris involuntarily shed 2 lines of tears. In her mind, her mother's words repeated. The window period for my father to get an organ transplant is only 20 days. If no suitable kidney source is found in these 20 days, the father's physical function will enter the end of the decline. In that case, his body will be so weak that it can't even support the surgical anesthetic drugs, let alone undergoing a major organ transplant operation. This situation is much like some elderly patients with terminal cancer. In summary, the body is very weak and the condition is very serious. Surgery. The body can't hold it. Chemotherapy. The body can't hold it either. In the end, there is no alternative but palliative care. To put it bluntly, it means to give up treatment and use painkillers instead to help patients relieve their pain in the last stage of life. Doris's father was only in his 50s. For Doris, she couldn't accept the death of her father at such a young age. However, the chance of trying to save her father at the moment is so slim that it makes people desperate. The cigarette burned out, she unconsciously lit another one, and in her mind, she remembered Walter's words again. At the same time, a multiple choice question popped out subconsciously in her heart. There are 2 options for this multiple choice question. Option A, promise Walter, change her father's chance to survive. Option B, reject Walter and watch Dad pass away. Doris's heart was extremely painful because this was the cruelest multiple choice question she faced in her life for more than 20 years. At the same time, Walter was sitting in a Rolls-Royce, just driving away from the People's Hospital. Walter's full name is Walter Horowitz, an American, and his family is also a well-known real estate developer in the United States. He had been classmates with Doris in the early years and had always had a good impression of Doris. But because Walter was still under his family's nose at the time, he didn't dare to pursue an Asian woman grandiosely. However, the current Walter and the student Walter have different attitudes. He now has sufficient resources and initiative in the family, and now he has made his business in China and has begun to enter China's real estate field, so he immediately began to release himself from the clutches of the family. The first thing to release himself for is to reconquer Doris, an old classmate. This is not only because he has always thought about Doris. More importantly, Doris has made great contributions to the Emgrand Group in recent years, and her abilities have been highly recognized by the entire real estate field. She is not only capable but also very familiar with the China real estate industry. For a new American entrepreneur like Walter, if she can be used, it will not only be an excellent help but will also save many detours. In addition, Doris also has a great value, that is, she knows all the confidential information of the Emgrand Group. The real estate industry seems to be building and selling buildings. It does not develop any high-tech technologies or produce sophisticated equipment. It does not seem to have too much technical content or too much confidential information. But in fact, the real estate industry has more confidential information than most industries. Because they are very close to the relevant departments, large real estate companies often master the direction of urban planning and development to a certain extent. For example, a certain piece of land may be planned for development in the future, and a certain area may cover rail transit in the future. These are all confidential information worth 10,000 gold carats. In addition, every piece of land and every project must be tendered. The base of this tender is the absolute core secret. Once leaked, it will bring huge losses to the company. Therefore, Walter's wishful thinking is to be able to put Doris in his bag and then digest the confidential information of the Emgrand Group she holds. Then, the Emgrand Group will be hollowed out in a targeted and step-by-step manner, and finally, seize the entire Oris Hill market. At this moment, Walter looked at Doris's photo on the phone with a playful look, and said something in his mouth. Doris, this time, I must completely and thoroughly conquer you. The next day, Charlie went out and bought a few red sandalwood jewelry boxes, which were used to store the pill to be given to everyone at night. After all, it is a life-saving medicine in the eyes of everyone, and it has to be matched with decent packaging. On the way home after buying the jewelry box, Charlie received a call from Isaac. As soon as the phone was connected, Isaac was very excited and said, "Master. The case of illegal fundraising by the old house owner was sentenced this morning." "Oh?" Charlie asked hurriedly, "So?" Isaac hurriedly said, "That man is sentenced to life imprisonment, and all his assets were confiscated to repay the defendant's arrears. So, now all assets in his name will enter the judicial auction process, including your constant concern old house." "Very good." Charlie immediately asked, "Isaac, help me put my name on it, I want to participate." Isaac said, "Master, rest assured, I have already signed up as a driver of mine. After all, you and your parents used to live in that house. If your name appears in the list of bidders again, I am afraid there will be someone who can figure out your identity, so can make a claim. Please don't rush it." Charlie said with emotion, "I didn't think about this." "Then take your driver's name to participate in the auction. In any case, you have to take a photo of the house." Isaac smiled and said, "Master, don't worry, that old house has long been listed as a protected building that is prohibited from demolition. It has almost no circulation value, so the starting price is only 880,000. I don't think anyone will follow you. Even if they are robbers, the price reaches 2 or 3 million, it is estimated that it can be won steadily." "Okay." Charlie relaxed and asked him, "When will the auction start?" Isaac replied, "It is temporarily set at 10 o'clock in the morning next Monday." Charlie asked again, "Should I go to the court to participate in the auction or it is online?" Isaac explained, "Now judicial auctions are basically conducted online, open and transparent. I have already signed up and paid a bid deposit. I will start bidding on the judicial auction website at 10 o'clock next Monday morning." "Okay." Charlie smiled slightly and praised, "Isaac, this thing is done very well, it's hard work." Isaac hurriedly said, Master, you are too polite. These little things are all easy. Charlie said with emotion. For you, it's a simple effort, but for me, it means too much. After speaking, Charlie couldn't help but feel melancholy. Although his parents have passed away for nearly 2 decades, Charlie still feels heartache every time he thinks about it. At the same time, the Du family mansion. Leona, who had been thinking about Changying's old house, also learned from the old housekeeper that the house was about to be auctioned. She excitedly said to the old housekeeper on the spot, "Uncle Wang, please help me to sign up, I want to participate in this auction." The old butler nodded and said, "Okay, second lady, I will arrange for someone to register for you." Leona said, "Then work hard, I'll find if someone can help me solve these problems. I'll go back to my room and make a call." The old butler said, "Okay, second lady." Leona walked back to her room quickly, took out her mobile phone, and called Zin. She knew that Zin had gone to Australia, but she had not contacted Zin for these 2 days. Zin was also extremely depressed because of his mood, and because he felt dull, he did not take the initiative to contact Leona and the children. At this time, Zin was sitting at the door of the villa, on the edge of the cliff next to the sea, staring at the sea below in a daze. In the past few days when he came to Australia, he has been in a low mood, not only because his wife Leona wanted to divorce him, but also because after the scandal was exposed, his image in everyone's minds was subverted. The evaluation of him by the outside world is simply the worst man in China in recent years, not one of them. Because, not only did he mess around outside with his wife behind her back, he made an illegitimate daughter as well. He also disguised the illegitimate daughter as a bodyguard to take her home and deceive his wife and children under their nose. What's more, he also directed his illegitimate daughter to commit a felony overseas. This is not over yet. The most despised by outsiders is that in order to avoid the exposure of the scandal, he even joined forces with the self-defense force to kill his own daughter. What is this? This is a beast who derails in marriage, hides everything from everyone, uses the illegitimate daughter as a tool of killing, and when the time comes he is ready to kill his daughter for his own benefit. It can even be said that once a person gathers so many evils in oneself, he may not even be compared with a beast. Even a beast looks better in certain aspects. Although Zin knew that all of this was the charge that the old man Chengfeng had cast on him for throwing the pot away. But he also knew very well that once these charges were deducted on his own head, he could not get rid of them no matter what. Whenever he thought of this, Zin gritted his teeth bitterly. Because he even had a hunch that he might not be able to get rid of these infamies for the rest of his life. Zin is indeed not a man of fame, but what he is most worried about is whether he will have the chance to inherit the Su family once he has these infamies part of his identity. After all, he can break the jar and don't care about infamy, but the Su family can't allow that. In the future, when the old man transfers power, he will feel that his reputation is too bad and refuse to give him the supreme power of the Su family. In that case, half of his life's hard work would have been completely wasted. Thinking of this, Zin gritted his teeth. Why? Why did the old thing make me take care of it? Why did the old thing make my daughter unaccounted for, life or death, but it killed me? He couldn't help but insult, picked up a bottle of vodka beside him and drank more than half of it, and suddenly threw it into the rolling sea below. At this moment, the phone rang suddenly. The name on the phone screen made him startled. Wife. Zin was puzzled at first, then hurriedly grabbed the phone, pressed to answer, and blurted out, "Wife. So you finally call me?" Leona said in a flat tone on the other end of the phone. "Zin, I am calling to talk about divorce. You are now in Australia and will not be able to come back for a while, so you should entrust a lawyer to help you go through the relevant procedures." Zin did not expect that the purpose of Leona's call was to communicate with him about the divorce, and he immediately felt a burst of anger from his heart. He couldn't help but said coldly, "Leona, as long as we haven't divorced, we still have a relationship between us as husband and wife. You ran to Oris Hill without my consent during that crucial time, despite the fact that you were still my wife and me your husband. I didn't stop you or blame you for this. It is enough to give you face. But when you were in Oris Hill, you even called me to mention the matter of divorce. Isn't it a bit too much? Do you really care about our love for more than 20 years of marriage?" Leona listened to Zin's accusations, not angry, but said indifferently, Zin, if you have self-knowledge, you should know that you are standing in a moral depression right now. If at this time you have to forcefully seize the moral high ground, then it's really disappointing. With those words, she continued further, affection is not something to fight for by mouth, but to be maintained by practical actions. I just filed for a divorce with you, and you think I don't care about love, but you are just an outsider for me now. All of your children are in their 20s. You have kept this from me for so many years. In the past, so many years, have you ever thought about our relationship as husband and wife? Zin heard this, and his whole person suddenly fell into despair. Yes, now accusing Leona of not being affectionate is almost equivalent to slapping himself in the face. After all, he is the one who really did the wrong thing, he wronged her by committing the mistake. 10 years. Just when he didn't know how to answer Leona, Leona sighed slightly. Hey, let's not talk about it, I'm calling you, just because I want to settle in Oris Hill as soon as possible, even if I don't. To settle down, I must stay in Oris Hill for at least a period of time, so divorce as soon as possible is also for you to consider, so as not to let others gossiping about you. Leona didn't speak too clearly, but Zin had already gotten the cryptic meaning of her words. Leona meant that she would stay and settle in Oris Hill, and if the people of Eastcliff's big family knew about this, everyone could guess why she stayed in Oris Hill. To put it bluntly, it was for Changying Wade. If Leona and Zin still have a husband and wife relationship, then the fact that Leona settled in Oris Hill for Changying would indeed affect Zin's face to a certain extent. But if the marriage ended in divorce, for Zin, he can retain a bit of face. Zin was very angry, but couldn't say anything to blame or object. He has clearly realized in his heart that he no longer has any possibility to redeem Leona. This woman is already determined to divorce him at any cost. Thinking of this, he hated Changying even more. Changying Wade, the be it starred, is really lingering, even after the death in my life. He has been dead for so many years and still has a profound impact on Leona. That's fine, now he even took Leona off to Oris Hill. In Leona's eyes, this guy who has been dead for more than 20 years is much more important than me. Leona, who is on the other end of the phone, didn't hear Zin's response for a long time, so she continued to speak. After all, it's better to separate our ways if we cannot get together. Zin was silent for a moment, and took a deep breath. Hey, you said, after all, it's a couple, and we have been a couple for so many years. Let me think about it. Leona hummed, and said, call me at any time after you come up with a decision. All departments in Eastcliff are related. It is not necessary for both of us to go to divorce. As long as we coordinate, we will send a lawyer. This thing is done, the sooner the better. Okay. Zin said, I'll think about it, and I will contact you as soon as possible. Okay, bye. In the afternoon, Charlie had lunch at home, and he was about to go out with the pill he refined. Because he agreed to Aushue, he would go to her home to give her some guidance, so Charlie vacated the afternoon time ahead of the schedule. In order to carry the pill, he said to his father-in-law Jacob, Dad, do you have any plans for this afternoon? Jacob smiled and said, I still go to the Calligraphy and Painting Association in the afternoon. In the evening, we have dinner with the executives of Sotheby's auction house. Charlie nodded and said, then you must drink at the bar tonight. Yes. Jacob smiled. You have to drink a little, what's wrong with that? Charlie said, oh yes, I have something to do in the afternoon. If it's convenient for you, Dad, let me drive the car in the afternoon. Jacob handed the car key to Charlie without hesitation, and said, what's the inconvenience of this, you can take it and drive. It happens that I have to drink at night. If I drive, I have to find a driver. It is much more convenient to take a taxi. Charlie nodded and took the car key. Claire on the side said in a convenient way, Dad, I will go to the company for a while, so I will drop you at the Calligraphy and Painting Association. Jacob smiled and said, okay, this saves a taxi fare. After Jacob and Claire, the father and daughter had left, Charlie took the pill from the room, put it in an inconspicuous backpack, and walked away from home. He got into Jacob's car and drove straight to Chin Gang's villa in the suburbs. At the same time, at Oris Hill People's Hospital, Doris went to the office of the director of the nephrology department immediately after delivering the meal to her mother and asked about the father's current condition. Director Chen of the Department of Nephrology, who is over 60 years old, pushed his glasses and said seriously, Doris, to tell you, your father's condition is very serious now, and the kidney in his body is now completely useless. We now have him undergo peritoneal dialysis every day and hemodialysis every other day, and his complications are getting more and more serious. I went to check up this morning and found that his condition today has dropped a lot compared to yesterday. Yesterday, I communicated with your mother and said that there will be about 20 days of transplantation window, but after another evaluation today, the situation is not optimistic. I personally think this cycle may be shortened to about 15 days. Having said this, Director Chen sighed and said helplessly, there are still 15 days left for the transplant window. Excluding the preoperative preparation time, you have up to 12 days to find the kidney source. If you can't find it, then there really is no way. Doris's tears were suddenly uncontrollable and burst into her eyes. She quickly wiped away the tears, and asked anxiously, Drive. Chen, how can my father's situation have fallen so badly? His current kidney has just been transplanted 2 years ago. You did the transplant for him at the beginning. You said that his life will not be in danger for at least 10 years, but only 2 years have passed. Director Chen said helplessly, this situation is indeed far beyond my estimation, and I can't figure out why his kidney failure process developed so quickly this time. I also tried to check if it was a mistake. If he has taken any toxic substances, but I have not found any clues. Doris asked, Director Chen, will there be any toxic substances that can make people's kidneys fail quickly? Director Chen nodded and said, some traditional herbal medicines have relatively strong nephrotoxicity. For example, Aristolochia is one of them. The country has long removed this medicine from traditional medicine classics, but there are still some unscrupulous medicine practitioners. It can be effective and gives results quickly. Thus it will be secretly added to the prescription, which will eventually cause severe kidney damage to the patient. While talking, Director Chen sighed and said, buying health care products indiscriminately, taking herbal medicines indiscriminately, and listening to rumors about the health regimen is also a major cause of kidney failure in middle-aged and elderly people in recent years. Quote, moreover, these middle-aged and elderly people are easily fooled by unscrupulous TV advertisements, mobile phone advertisements, and so-called health care masters, and lack the ability to distinguish between the fake and real, the good and the bad. There is a director of thoracic surgery in our hospital. His father has never looked down upon him as a Western medicine student, and he doesn't know how to distinguish good traditional medicine from bad medicine. He blindly believes in the health programs on TV every day. Last year he felt like he had frequent urination. According to the content of the health program, he prepared a pair of traditional medicine for himself, boiled 3 bowls for himself every day, secretly drank it, and after drinking it for 3 days, he was sent to the hospital with acute renal failure. If he was not brought to the hospital in the 24 hours, he would have died. Listening to the case described by Director Chen, Doris carefully recalled the case for a long time, and said, Dr. Chen, before and after my father's illness, I did not see him taking any unknown drugs, nor did I see him taking self-cooked drugs or traditional medicine, let alone Aristolochia. After that, Doris said again, after the last kidney transplant, he was in overall good health and had mild diabetes, so he has been taking metformin sustained-release tablets, but this medicine is very safe for the kidneys. Yes, it is impossible to cause acute renal failure. Director Chen nodded and said, the Aristolochia I mentioned just now is just to give you an example. However, the ingredients that can cause acute renal failure are far more than Aristolochia, and there are many chemicals. Organic compounds have great nephrotoxicity. Doris asked, Director Chen, is there any way to find out what is the cause of my father's acute renal failure? Director Chen said, I have sent your father's blood and urine to the laboratory for testing, but this series of tests is very troublesome, and it will be difficult to find a clear result for a while. As he said, he continued, Doris, the most urgent task now is not to find out the cause of your father's kidney failure, but to solve the problem of the kidney source as soon as possible. This is the most important thing. Doris sighed extremely helplessly and said dejectedly, I have raised the price to 10 million yuan this morning, but my father has Rh-negative blood. This one factor alone has eliminated more than 99% of the kidney sources. Director Chen nodded and said seriously, Doris, the current situation is really helpless. I have also mobilized friends I know to help you inquire all over the country, but there is still no news yet. Speaking of this, Director Chen sighed and whispered, Doris, I advise you to be mentally prepared. Doris was silent for a moment, nodded slightly, and said weakly, Thank you, Director Chen, I know, I will think of a way. Okay. Director Chen comforted, but don't be too pessimistic. I have been in medicine for so many years and I have seen and heard many miracles. Among them are many miracles that I still can't understand. Someone is declared to have only a few months of life due to advanced cancer, but after he leaves the hospital, he can face his future life with extreme optimism, and he can even spend every day as the last day. On the contrary, such people survived for 3, 5, or even 10 years, the cancer cells in the body did not expand further. On the contrary, they seem to feel a certain strength and begin to retreat completely. There is another very miraculous case that happened in our Oris Hill People's Hospital. A patient with high paraplegia healed suddenly. Doris thought that Director Chen was comforting her, so she nodded slightly, but in her heart, she didn't think such a miracle might happen. So in her opinion, the only solution now is to find the source of the kidney. There is no other way. Coming out of Director Chen's office, Doris walked to the ward in a desperate manner. She really didn't expect that her father's condition had already deteriorated to this level, but it would accelerate again. The 20-day window period suddenly became 15 days. She doesn't know whether this window will continue to be shortened tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. As soon as she walked a few meters away, she suddenly received a call from Charlie. At this moment, Charlie was on the way to Chin Gang's house, remembering that Doris had not given him a definite answer, so he called her to ask if she had time at night. As soon as the phone was connected, Doris respectfully said, Master, what's your order? Charlie smiled and said, There is no order, just the same thing that I said yesterday. Are you free tonight? If you have time, come to Chin's home, we have a get-together. You all came to see me on the Chinese New Year, but I never got time to have a meal together, I feel sorry for it. Doris smiled reluctantly and said, Master, what are you doing so politely with me? Charlie said with a smile, Hurt, this is not a question of politeness, it is a polite exchange. I have prepared a small gift for everyone. It is not worth any money, but a small amount of care. If you have time, just come and sit down. It doesn't matter if you don't have time. I'll give you a gift later. When Doris heard this, she hurriedly said, Master, how can you condescend to give me something? I'll definitely be there, give me a time and place, I will definitely be there at night. Charlie said, Okay, I will send you the time and place on WeChat in a moment. Doris hurriedly said, Okay, young master. After finishing speaking, she said with some embarrassment, Master, I may not be able to stay too long, and I may have to leave early then, please forgive me in advance. Charlie said indifferently, It's okay, just look at your schedule and don't delay your own affairs. Doris breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, with her current whole personal state, she is not interested in any dinner. After all, her father was dying in a hospital bed. At this time, let alone rushing to the dinner, even eating, in Doris's opinion, has lost the necessity. From last night to now, apart from drinking a few sips of water, she didn't even take a grain of rice, but she still didn't feel any hunger. However, Charlie was her boss after all, and he was so kindly inviting, which made Doris feel that it was a bit unsuitable not to go, so he decided to sit there at night. After making a decision, she put the phone back in her pocket and walked back. Returning to the door of the ward, she heard the whispering sound from inside the ward. Doris felt tight and hurriedly pushed the door in. Only in the small living room outside the suite ward, her mother was sitting on the sofa crying bitterly, and Mr. Walter, her college classmate, stood in front of her mother with a smile on his face. At this moment, Doris broke out in an instant. She angrily said, Walter. Who let you come? What did you tell my mother? Walter turned around to see Doris coming back, smiled slightly, and said, Doris, I came to tell my aunt that there has been a slight change in the kidney source in the United States. Without waiting for Doris to ask further, he sighed, Hey. Doris, Rh-negative blood is too rare, and Rh-negative kidney sources are even rarer. This kidney source is now being scrambled by a French patient. The price paid by the French is also very high, Plus I have not confirmed with the donor for a long time, the donor side has already been a bit swayed. Doris frowned and asked coldly, "What do you mean?" Walter smiled and said, "I mean it is very simple, Doris. This kidney source can be said to be 1 in a million, and the owner of this kidney source is willing to sell a kidney in exchange for cash, so as long as you agree to my terms, I can get him to undergo a kidney removal operation in the United States today, and then order someone to freeze the kidney and transport it to China, and we can transplant it to Uncle tomorrow, but..." At this point, Walter slapped his lips, tisk, tisk. "But if you don't agree, the donor will probably be sold to the French. You know, there are only 2 kidneys. If he wants to survive, he has to keep at least one. If he sells one of the kidneys to the French, it is absolutely impossible for him to sell me another kidney. So, you must carefully consider my conditions, because the time left for you is running out."